Here, so is the meeting order? Again, by saying we acknowledge and respect indigenous people within the traditional lands we are meeting today. I would also like to introduce our new meeting coordinator, Robin Merrill. Her first meeting with us here live, so I think she'll do this great. Well, so I'd just like to start with adoption of the agenda. Is there any additions?
Nope. Move as presented.
By Director Jackson, second by Director Tierney. In favor? It's carried. We'll just receive the minutes from the second.
Chair, can I make a note? In the minutes, there were two items to be brought forward. One is here, the Water Sustainability Act. That was partially the discussion with Wildside. The other one that was noted in the minutes was Scootney Employment Services to bring to today something on the Economic Action Partnership Ag Forum. And that's not here today, and it's also not on the follow-up action list. So just to note that that item from the minutes was dropped.
Yeah, I do believe the water sustainability one will be scheduled.
Well, or Sangeeta's here as well, but yeah, so those items aren't lost. They're in the minutes. Okay, yeah. One of them was captured, one wasn't.
Right. Thank you. I will start then with the staff report from our fire chief.
Recording in progress.
Thank you, Director. Sorry, I wasn't sure if it's going to be up on the screen or not.
Oh, I have it here.
So first off, I'd just like to apologize. This report should have on the last agenda. And that was my fault for not sending it to the correct person. So this is our first quarter report for 2024 for the Valley Fire Services. So we've got a breakdown of the call types there. So in the first quarter, we had a total of 192 incidents. 31 were firefighter related, which includes anything from hazmat to wildland, the open burning complaints, outdoor fires, structure fires, and or rescue type calls. 106 medical calls. That's the first responder program. 19 motor vehicle incidents across the region, both within the fire protection areas and the greater road rescue area. And 36 public assist calls. Those could include like lift assists or just other general calls for assist. The chart there just shows our historical quarter over quarter. With an average uptake since quarter one of 2022. Our average response times for the quarter out of the Creston Hall were 8:52, out of Wendell 21:25, Canyon Lister 11:09, West Creston 17:18, and I feel that that's important for you to understand in that. We have the work experience program out of the Creston Hall that gives us a little better response time out of there. And then in some of the rural halls, that's where we see the increased time. And it's really just based on the distance, the travel distance of those firefighters who live in those areas to get to the fire hall. Our paid on call staffing. So we had 62 total, including the full-time staff. And we have a full complement of 6 work experience firefighters. And we recently had some leave for jobs in Ontario and one in Kelowna. And so we've got a fairly new WEP group right now, and which is exciting, but it's always challenging, onboarding 6 new people like that. So it's good times. As far as the fire halls go, the only real note to make is in Canyon Lister Fire Hall, the diesel exhaust extraction system project or install has been delayed due to some building remediation requirements. So working with the regional district and the building department to move that project forward as they see fit. The regional district is taking the lead on that project. So stay tuned for that. No new equipment purchases in the last quarter. And then, the public engagement events that your firefighters participate in across the valley. So there's smoke alarm education session, smoke alarm check and install. So we'll go into a private residence upon request to check and perhaps install fire alarms. We have a small program, we have a program with a small inventory of those things, so we can offer that for those in need. There's a child car safety seat inspection, home escape planning session, the Yakanuki Polar Plunge, where not only did we participate, but provided some standby rescue service in case anything went wrong there. Elementary school fire hall tours. We did a children's hospital fundraiser with the local Save On, and then it was late March, early April. Yakanuki had organized a prescribed fuel mitigation burn between their new admin building, the Wilfred Jacobs building, and the woodlot. And BC Wildfire was involved, Yakanuki, and we were able to participate as well to provide some water tender services, some public education, and some personnel to assist with that. And so it was a very successful burn, and I hope that they can continue to do that and we can help and participate. So that's my report, if there's any questions.
Yeah, thank you. My main question is about medical or first responder services, but through the chair first, Jared, because you just mentioned the wildfire mitigation. Are your members being cross-trained for interface fires?
We are, yeah. So as structural firefighters, there's programs through BC Wildfire, and it's wildland firefighting for structural firefighters, and then there's also the structure protection side, which is the sprinkler systems for the trailers, and that's what we refer to as a SPP 150 course. Yeah.
And the reason it comes to mind, aside from other main question, is the province ramped up the funding for that training. And so, of course, it makes sense that either the work experience or all the other personnel and the volunteers and the services would be offered that training. Are you able to, is there enough capacity in those classes to offer it to other locals, to farmers and other people? Are you advertising to say whoever else can fill the seats is welcome for those?
Yeah, we offered the S100, which is a wildland firefighting course for individuals, and we did that early in the spring. And we had some RCMPs and conservation. It was mainly for first responders. The private industry usually looks after themselves, and then we had firefighters there as well. So it become if there's a member of the public that's interested in that training, I would slip them an application to join the fire department, and then they can get the training. That's how I would approach that situation. But there's definitely some education and awareness around that, and I think that's part of the Fire Smart program. And we're really working together as a valley. We've got a Fire Smart committee. We were at an event at the farmers market just last weekend, and so we're really trying to push that education awareness campaign through the Fire Smart stuff, and that's really focused on the residential homeowners and property owners and that kind of stuff.
Thanks, because otherwise I think a group would have to make its own application for training, and it's a bit easier.
Well, working with Yakanuki on that, they want to potentially, have that training for their personnel, their public works, and so that they can do some of that stuff within their community. And so I'm working really closely with their coordinator to say, hey, we can work together on that. And, if it's about equipment or I do have instructors that can provide that stuff, then we're definitely trying to build that relationship and collaborate.
And if I can then share my main question that I scribbled in advance was looking at your report. I love the pie charts. I mean, it just speaks volumes. Not only that you're not just a structural fire service, that you have several other, serving the public in many ways. And 55% of your calls in this quarter were first responder. I've got kind of on hold right now my conversation with Tom Dool because trying to unpack the old archaic jaws of life bylaw that we're all tied into. Create something for Area A so we can properly fund first responder, lift assists, possibly MVIs if it doesn't involve tools and you can't claim through the province for reimbursement of costs, that kind of stuff, to capture all of that, to put more, a little bigger equitable tax base out there to either go towards the Reindale service or Creston and through, Window Lakeview and the whole like. So just wondering, have you been able to talk to Tom Dool about the range of services you're offering and to this breakdown, how this leads towards, Windell and further into Area A? This would be important because I'm struggling a bit that I don't want, if we create a new bylaw, to be limited. I want it to be able to fund whatever we need to fund to support public.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Tom and I had an initial conversation and I know he's working on that, just what you were saying and stuff. And so we're continuing to work on that. And, I've got these stats. This first responder number is within the fire protection areas of the town of Creston, Erickson, and Arrow Creek. That is the only place that we offer that service right now.
Still not Windell.
That's right. And so those conversations are happening, because it's more than just the funding and the bylaw, it's the capacity to be able to offer that. Medical first responder is an important program, but needs to be delivered in a timely manner, like a response in a timely manner. And so we would have to look at operations a little bit to make sure that can be done.
So I think it'd be good for yourself, Tom, and Director Vandenberg and myself to sit down and talk about the importance of, I know you don't want to beat the ambulance to scene, but often the ambulance can't get up the driveway. You couldn't get up Matthew Road necessarily. They couldn't get into some of the side roads. So hopefully we can schedule a conversation and see what that would carve out. I better leave it there, I guess, but it's kind of it's stalled right now in my mind, not identifying exactly what the service to public could be and where we might be missing out. Sure, thanks.
I'll reach out to Tom again and make sure if there's anything I can offer, I will.
He's frustrated with me not answering his last stuff, I think.
Okay.
Director Vandenberg.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you, Chief, for your report. That which is jumping out at me is the wildfire fuel mitigation work that you're currently right now through with the Akanuki. I see, and how it ties in with the Fire Smart, and there's a number of components here. There's the Fire Smart awareness, the education that we need to continue so that residents understand the benefit of thinking in those terms. You're talking about a Fire Smart committee who will take time and discuss what this program ought to look like and its benefits, that sort of thing. I would suggest that I would like to see some recommendations come out of that for a kind of a progressive program along the lines of wildfire fuel mitigation, to see more real activities, planning taking place where prescribed burns are done to reduce fuel loads, like we're seeing in the East Kootenay Regional District, and the result of that success protecting their airport. That is the progressive type of planning or programming that would encourage come out of this type of committee and those conversations. And I would like to hear more about them. If we can support that, being proactive instead of always this reactive, I think that's where I would like to support you.
Absolutely. So the fuel mitigation projects are typically identified in the community wildfire resiliency plans, and the regional district has a very robust program that is working on that, and I believe this year, 2024, is when area, I wanna say area like, A, B, C are getting their updated plans. And that's where we'll be able to, through that committee, we work together to talk about those priorities and how we can help each other and do that.
Supplemental, if I may, through the chair, that sounds great. Perhaps the next time we gather, you can bring us up to speed on what those objectives look like. So that I can go out in the community and say, yeah,
I will follow up with the counterparts at the regional district, and I'll, like, they would have to report on that. It's outside of my scope.
no, fair enough, and as we can make a note of that for follow-up for future meetings, it's just a wholer conversation.
Absolutely, and that's why the committee is so important, is that we have all of the local governments, the industry, the nonprofits, the community force, we're all sitting at the table together talking about this, so.
Thank you.
And go on.
Chair Tierney.
Thank you, Chair, and through the chair, thank Chief for the report. Well done. Recently at board, there was a request that Tom Newell was going to be working on producing a petition that can be used to ask the people of Kitchener whether they want to be part of the first responders program. That was a couple months ago. Heard you say that there's a capacity issue in dealing with first responder areas. Have you discussed, has Tom discussed this petition with you, and is there a capacity issue other than just the community being
Well,
interested?
so the first responder program is that medical response. I believe, no, Tom, nobody has reached out to talk to me directly about it as of now.
Okay.
But that's not to say that maybe it was further up the chain that discussions have happened so far. When I say the capacity issue for the first responder program, it's making sure that, there's firefighters that reside in that area, that service is being offered. And I think, for Kitchener, historically, we've talked about a fire response and what that might look like. And I think that's a different conversation. And so I'm definitely willing to have that conversation if the appetite is there through the community.
Thank you.
Director Jenkins.
Yeah, just
You guys are muted. We can't hear you.
I have a question, and it's something that people ask me. Frequently, your medical calls are 106 over that quarter, which is very, very high. And I'm just wondering, what is the level of emergency that triggers the fire department's response to the emergency service? The ambulance service.
So the ambulance service classifies their calls into different types. So you've got like purple, red, and yellow. Purple being like an immediate, life safety event, cardiac event, that kind of thing. It's all based on the caller information. It goes down from there. Red might be, an overdose, as an example. Yellow might be a shortness of breath. So those are the three, color codes and types of calls that the first responders would get dispatched to. The other level of it is a delay. So if ambulance is delayed, and it could be up to 10 minutes, more than 10 minutes, then first responders are deployed, no matter what the call type is, so that, they can provide that level of care to the person, so.
Through the chair, in regards to the wildfire mitigation, Nora Hammond, who's part of my team anyway, just informed me that for A, B, and C, they just received UBCM CRI funding, and so they're preparing contract for tender right now.
Perfect.
So it's happening.
Worked really closely with Nora on that, so that's excellent.
Dr. Tierney.
Yes, through the chair, Chief Rail, I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank you very much for a couple of things you've done for Area B this month. Hoisting the flag in Erickson was a great job and timely, right before the 100th anniversary. And secondly, that huge slash pile we had out Lloyd Pit that was a real danger to the community. You managed to get that burnt for us, and thank you very much for that.
Yep, you're welcome. That was done with the help of YRB, so they were a tremendous help in that as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Dr. Hunt.
Just to that point, was that what we saw in town here 4 days ago, 3 days ago, the big plume?
I know that was a structure fire in Erickson.
Was,
Yeah, on Monday. This burn happened about 6 weeks ago now.
Okay, so with that, your report has been received. Very much.
Thank you.
We'll move on to our new business. First is request funding, Legion Hall.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, directors, and staff. I'm Ina Miller, and I'm an executive member of the Legion Board. This is Trevor Latonga, who's our vice chair.
Okay, I might need to speak up because it appears our system is having trouble catching voices and then you have a soft voice.
Okay, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yes, so we have presented an application for funding to do some renovations at our Legion to make our facility more handicapable, accessible. We have some aging infrastructure. The building was built in the 40s. The concrete work is many decades old. It's pitting and falling apart, and we don't have proper railings and stairways and ramps to get people into the Legion safely. So the front entrance is a whole other category, but this application is for the side entrance that goes into the canteen. And we have several members who are in mobility vehicles, wheelchairs and such, that cannot get through safely. We are very low in funding at the present time. We've had a couple of tough years through COVID where we were not able to run our canteen at capacity, and so our funding is very low. As I explained in the application, when we do get funding, we're required to give a huge portion of it back to the community. It's part of our mandate. And so we don't get to keep a lot of the money that we do generate. in our canteen and in some of our other events. We have food events all through the month. We have some income from pancake breakfast, renting the hall, that kind of thing. But a large portion of that we can't use for expenses such as making these improvements. So we are asking for some funds to help us with this, and we've had some estimates done, and it's way beyond our capacity to pay for at the moment.
Questions? Director Vandenberg.
So I had asked for this to be brought forward to the agenda because the difficulty is when each of us in areas get this separate application, there's only so much information that you can put on there. This is the appropriate group because this is in our community. It's unfortunate that I am kind of hearing that you're not able to create reserve funds for this type of asset improvement because it's going to happen and continue to happen. And I will start off by saying I appreciate everything that the Legion stands for and does. But this is taxpayer dollars that we're talking about at the table, and it's that return of investment, that benefit to the community, which I see going forward. I wonder why you can't create reserves for this type of situation. When I think about the Legion Hall, I think about other institutional type facilities that are in our community. And is everybody having this issue and this challenge? Will there be further asks, sort of thing, from us? And so I just wanted that clarity to be part of this conversation. What I don't know right now is it's clear the ask to areas A, B, and C is in around that 13,000, but there's no mention of any ask from the town of Creston.
There is a question.
There is. And what is it for? Okay, so then it's an $18,000 ask. Okay, thank you for that clarity.
Yeah, it's combined town of Creston and all of our directors. But Director Cheney.
Yes, and through the chair, Sina, thank you very much for coming here today and for your work, both of you with the Legion. I went by to take a look and noticed your front entrance and your wheelchair ramp is in not very good shape itself. So, and that's what I thought the ask was for. I didn't look at the canteen entrance. So will the front entrance be a project that will be considered by you soon or in the future?
Through the chair, I have some photos here of the concrete work that needs the repairs. It's more than concrete work, it's the railing and the ramp is what we really need. I totally agree that the front entrance for this wheelchair ramp needs to repair as well, but we do not use that entrance as often as this entrance. The main hall entrance where that ramp is that requires some work is only used for a monthly meeting and if the hall is rented, such as for our pancake breakfast, which is one morning a month. But the other doorway, which is in photos here, is the one that's used almost every day of the week. And that's where most of our members come in to the canteen. So that's where we really want to put emphasis. And we also need an electric door so that they have a push-button system to get these wheelchairs and things through. And we are in the process of applying for some systems for that and other things.
Supplementary, yes, I was going to ask if you are applying to other sources and for that front entrance, that's a fairly major job.
It is, it's a huge job. I'm actually looking for assistance other places as well so that we could put a lift in the front because I know the ramp is in a lot of disrepair. It needs to be redone, but I also know that it's too steep for most people to wheel themselves up. And, you know, I know my mother, she's 77 and she's in a wheelchair and you know, if I bring her to something, then I have to push her because she don't have the strength to get up that ramp in the front. So I'm in the process right now of looking for some grant money to install a lift in the front.
Thank you.
And through the chair, if I may just respond to Director Vandenberg, we are in the process of getting our financials in better shape. As I said, we have a couple of years of lack that we have to make up for, but we will be able to eventually put some money toward these repairs as well. And we intend to do that, of course, but we're being hit with a lot of things that have been neglected for a number of years. We have some roof issues that we're dealing with at the moment. We have a couple of other areas because it has not been dealt with in the past. So we're doing the best we can. We are not looking for a free ride. We're trying very hard to put together a program where we can do these things on our own. But right now we need a little bit of help.
And we do give back to the community. It isn't really advertised, it's what, but we do give a lot back to the community.
Dr. Jackson.
Thank you. Through the chair, and I have a number of points I just want to touch on, and they're not all going to get solved here. Some of them are fairly straightforward. The one point I raised is that you look at an electoral area like Area A, less than half the population of Area B, but almost the same tax base. That's because of lakefront and some large properties. Plus, we don't have a lot of farm, and farmland doesn't draw much taxation. Taxation is what pays for discretionary grants. And some of our other grant money, like community development, is tied to the payments in lieu of taxes, complicated formulas through the province. But short story there is it's not very equitable how money is drawn. How money is given out though, Area A is supporting 5 community halls plus a number of other sites that are community service based, like the Harrison Memorial now, it's now a performance venue. The Heart in Boswell is also a small meeting area performance venue and other locations. So it's difficult to just simply say, take something, divide it in 4 and say ABC town. Much more thought should be put into prorating and who actually is able to use something. Is it a people-based thing? How far are the people? Are they likely to use that? What else does any particular director have to support, whether it's in Yaddo or West Creston or wherever? So the asking for let's take this and cut it in 4 is a tough pill sometimes. Although many times I've said, yeah, absolutely. We're all in, let's just do it. Saving the Creston Ed Center, keeping that together. A, B, and C at the time, we just said to Creston, what do you need to make this work? We just pretty well matched, split the funds and said, let's make this happen. It's of a fairly high level of importance. So the ask should be thought through in terms of who is benefiting. Yes, community in general, when you have to give a lot of the money you earn back to community, but you're probably not giving a lot of it to Reindel to support kids out there, say. The other point, and that's one of the toughest ones, is it's been back and forth. Is a Legion in part a business enterprise? And I don't know if you have a property tax exemption status right now or not from the town.
I don't know, to tell you the truth.
Okay, so that's been one of the measures historically. The Local Government Act prohibits local government from providing financial assistance to a business because that competes with other venues, other establishments that would offer community a service. Legions historically offer some of their services at a discounted price compared to what, say, in terms of the canteen, what another venue may have to charge for beverages or service or whatever. Over and above that, though, the Legion's generally more available for other community events or other groups like the cadets. So obviously there's a social support aspect to it and there's a business aspect. The business aspect is in competition with other businesses in town, which pay 2.4 times residential rate in taxation. And so they push back, and that's why the Local Government Act has that clause. We shall not support a business venture with grants to the detriment of our tax base. Whether or not you're given a tax exemption on property tax by the town or a partial tax exemption would be a statement or an analysis of how that region operates. If you were purely a canteen, nothing else is accessible for public use, the grounds aren't accessible, you didn't have November 11th ceremonies, cenotaph, that kind of thing, that would be different if you were just purely a establishment, say licensed drinking establishment versus everything else you do. So we need to, all of us, understand that because we're all regulated by the Local Government Act, even though the community charter is overridden in parts by Local Government Act. However, Accessibility is important. I generally support the idea. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole right now, but as the directors and the board, you need to understand that when you ask us for money, we need to understand that we can in fact direct money to do that. It makes sense. I've been through the building, I've looked at the roof, I've been through your kitchen, I looked at all your food safe issues, the countertops, all the stuff. I gave a little professional sort of opinion on stuff in the past. That building has, as you said, a lot of issues. So the next question in general is, how have you structured your books? Because I see here a gross profit of 31,000. I don't think that was your gross revenue was stated. And out of the gross revenue, what has to be given away to community, that should be calculated after the very basic capital costs of keeping that facility there. Not the operating, the capital. If you don't have a capital asset management plan, you don't know what you should be putting aside in reserve and then planning to spend every year. If there's difficulties with the accounting because you're a unique entity, maybe you say, okay, we're going to get a loan against the building. We're going to fix these things. We're going to pay the loan back. It's obviously a capital repayment expense. It's exempt from what you have to, under your charter, give back to community. So you can fix the building before bleeding all the money away. I don't know the mechanisms, but if you don't have that kind of plan and you don't have the accountant say, this is this and that's that, you will continue to, when I say bleed, generously give your funding back to community at risk of collapsing the entire operation. There's got to be a better way to analyze this, because a decade or more ago, when I asked questions like this, there were no answers. How does fixing the roof tie into your expenses? Is that included or excluded from a profit? To me, any business, it's nowhere near a profit. Keeping your business open requires that expenditure. There's nothing to give away. It's not profit. It's not gross profit. It's expense, 100% expense. So, as I said, we're not going to solve all this today, but the building needs a lot of work. Anybody who wants to walk through and see that, somehow there's got to be a way to book those expenses and not worry about $5,000 and $10,000 here and there. It's a big building. It's the hundreds of thousands of dollars that you need to worry about. If you had all that planning and your legal status of you are 55% or 51% not-for-profit, charitable, whatever you want to call it, maybe you'd have better access to other grants, Build Canada Fund and stuff like that. But I think that needs to be established, both for us to be giving money to what could be competing with local businesses and for your future sustainability. So I'd love to support this exercise. I don't know how time critical it is, but I think we need to see more on paper.
Through the chair, we are looking into getting a mortgage on the building.
Okay.
To take care of some of this. We have a new bookkeeper. She's very precise. She's going through our paperwork with a fine-tooth comb and figuring out where we should be dealing a little better with things like the GST, that kind of thing, which hasn't been, I guess, reported properly in the past. She's found a few areas where we could definitely improve. So yes, we do have a long-term plan. It's a struggle, but we're going to keep working on it. We are working with Fortis at the moment, trying to get some rebates on getting some upgrades to our building so it's more energy efficient. The roof issue is a prelude to getting solar panels at some point fairly soon. So yes, we have a plan. It may not show in the application, but there is a plan. It's just a matter of time.
I appreciate that.
I appreciate your advice. We understand.
I extend freedom of the floor to Councillor Dumas.
Yes, I was going to entertain your comment here as well. Go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, the Royal Canadian Legion Bridge 29 is on the permissive tax exemption list for the town of Creston.
Good. Thank you. That's a good start.
Yeah, I assume the ones too. It's
important.
considered a nonprofit, so.
Yeah, we're a registered nonprofit.
Okay. So before we make any motions on this, there are some things we need for clarity. So unless somebody wants to make a motion, meeting.
I think it's appropriate. We can respond now through our grants portal. I could say in the amount requested, yes. I could say other amount, just state the amount. And it can almost be a quick offline discussion to get them moving ahead, provided there's no barriers in terms of eligibility? It sounds like not. They're substantially not for profit, so we're not competing with business. Some communities are not granting the legions that exemption, is my understanding, based on their operating model. But we can do that offline.
Yeah, that would be my question. If we continue this discussion outside this meeting to come up with. And if we have more questions, we will be asking those questions. We don't need the answers, so I think we'll leave it at that for now. You've informed us of what you need and why, and we'll be responding with perhaps some more questions that we need to answer before we make our decision. Okay.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to take a moment and invoke my privilege as chair here. First, by asking people in the audience, how many are here on the item regarding access to the goat river?
Do you want to change the order of the agenda?
Reshuffle our
Yeah.
agenda. And so I would then.
So I would move that we amend the order of the agenda to address item 8.1 at this time.
Okay. I will just bring it up here then. So to explain, part of what we wanted to do at this meeting was inform everybody of the information provided by the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure regarding this. So I'll read this out. At this point, here is our stance and clarification that can be shared. The ministry has a road right-of-way which bisects private land on both sides. This was dedicated by a subdivision plan. The dirt trail on the right-of-way is not maintained. We currently do not prohibit vehicular use, nor do we encourage it. The current gate at the end of the maintained section of Goat River South Road has been left unlocked as it's done in the past. People are free to walk on the right-of-way. It is each individual's responsibility to ensure they stay on public lands. That meaning that off-leash dogs need to be carefully controlled so that they do not stray onto private land. It's important to note there is no access to water via this right-of-way that does not entail trespass. At the end of the unmaintained constructed trail on our right-of-way is a gravel pit under the control of the ministry. Pits, even when inactive, are industrial sites. Trespassing is not permitted. We understand that persons have chosen to walk in this area to access the waterfront. We cannot condone such use. The gravel pit is not a park nor a recreational property. We are currently planning on placing signs, gates, barriers, or other devices to clarify ownership status and add security and warning at the pit. Under the Health, Safety, and Reclamation Code for Mines in BC, we must take practical measures, I assume, to prevent access to those unauthorized and ensure warning of trespass in the area. Constituents with further questions can call our front office at 250-354-6400. And we will provide them a response and answer questions. To summarize, people can walk on the right-of-way, but need to ensure they do not trespass onto private land parallel to the right-of-way or into the pit at the end of the right-of-way. There is no water access along this right-of-way that does not constitute a trespass. So that's the email that was sent for this meeting that we received for information. Further to that, items such as legal issues, land issues, and labor issues become in-camera items if we need to address them. And if anything further on this, as to is there some way we can find a solution would be probably the question. Would first have to be addressed in camera by the agencies that are involved in this. So I do believe we'll be asking staff to arrange for an in-camera meeting so we can continue to have this discussion. But this is the information that needs to be shared by the public. That's the status of it. The actual road right away is a public road and people are allowed to walk on it. cannot trespass on the private property or access the gravel pit. So, any questions from directors? Go ahead, Director.
And thank you for that, as timely as necessary. Other than, how do we roll that information out? Because this group here is just representative of a much larger group. And this is necessary information to make available to some capacity. Is there any suggestion on how we can make this available, so that people understand? And of course, if things change, if relationships change and that sort of thing, then it needs to be updated. So perhaps there's a mechanism that we can discuss on this issue that brings constituents to a place where they can understand what's going on.
I think it would involve a media release with our local newspaper would be one part of it. Perhaps a posting on the RDCK website would be another way to do it. Social media it could become toxic on social media. So I would prefer it doesn't go there. But those are ways that we could advertise it at this point. And also probably through an RDCK media release as well. Because it is an issue.
So perhaps further to that, is that something that we can leave with staff to look into and contemplate and let us know what they suggest or their recommendation would be?
Through the chair.
Go ahead, Joe.
We can definitely have a conversation with the Ministry of Transportation, but we shouldn't be doing a media release without, that would need to be a coordinated media release because we're trying to communicate their information. But we can definitely speak with staff there about that. But we should be careful about trying to communicate another level of government's information.
Correct. Okay, so if you don't mind then, Joe, if you could approach Ministry of Highways, Kevin Lewis with this. He's a provider of this information, and maybe come up with an agreement as to what should be released and who releases it.
Yeah, through the chair, if we just, yes, we will do that. If Robin, if that could just, or Carly, if that could just be recorded as a note for us, that'd be great.
Okay.
Direction to staff.
Yeah, as a direction to staff, correct. Is anybody, any other questions from directors? I normally don't allow for public questions, but because this is the issue you're all here for, I will allow it. Go ahead.
Thank you. For you that don't know me, I'm Loretta Steinhammer. I invited all my friends here to show RDCK that we are very concerned that we are losing access to Goat River again, another access point. RDCK has a recreation master plan that was published in January of 2020 that clearly stated the citizens want access to Goat River. I know you guys have been looking at that area as a regional park. So just to say, well, Modi says you can only go so far, but you're trespassing, just awareness of that isn't enough. We are looking for some action from this government to give us, the public, some access to Goat River. So I would appreciate more than just a media release, some kind of moving forward on a park or license of occupancy to keep this particular location open and available to the public.
And take the gate down, the existing gate, take it down because it's giving those people in there a false sense of security that that's their property. We've been kicked off. The RCMP has been there on several occasions. I've had rocks thrown at me. The foul mouth that comes out of those people is something I won't repeat here. And get rid of the gate and make sure that we have a 66-foot right of way up through there and put an end to it so that these people don't feel that it's theirs. that's been a false advertisement for the past who knows how many years. And that was put out by Roger Chadwick.
Chair,
And now-
if I could suggest,
Sold
Chair,
that property.
point of order.
Yes.
We are not at public time. All public should refrain from making, naming specific accusations against people. Not
It's
the
not-
time,
and that's
if I
not
might,
my
Chair,
position.
my point of order is that we not have public providing commentary. It may or may not be supported in this venue. That the comments be respectful, be limited, and be framed as questions. We can have conversations with public at many times, and I always do, but every person here should respect that they cannot be making claims or accusations or making statements about individuals, but they can ask us questions. That's the purpose.
I want to answer Loretta's question first, because I'm also a person who has walked down there for years. I understand it's very near and dear to me. At this point, we know that water access continues to be a very important issue. And that's why it's on the agenda today. That's why I'm seeking further solutions, not just me, but we are, through some in-camera meetings, to see if there is a way we can come up with a cooperative solution. We're only at the beginning of that. We all know that the land, other than the right of way, is and always has been private property. We all know that the former owner did nothing to stop people from walking there. So it's become a habit and considered a local park because of people's access. We understand that. But because the property has changed hands, the private property owners have property rights for everything except the road that goes through there. And I think that's becoming clearly understood. And I would ask that everybody abide by that. If you're gonna walk your dog there, you stay on the road and respect the private property. That's first. But secondly, if we're gonna continue this, we have to have those in-camera discussions to see if we can come up with a proposed cooperative solution. And if we can,
You guys are frozen, can't hear you again.
I have texted Craig, Carly, just so you're aware.
Thanks, Joe.
sound check.
The bisected property ends where as my research has shown me, a crown land, BC crown land begins. And from that point forward, I agree with Kevin Lewis's statement there that the road goes to a gravel pit, I think was named, that's wording. But also at the same time,
to tell you.
So then we take the gate down,
Uh,
because I live on Old River Road too. Can I just put a gate across at Highway 21 and say, no more people coming through here, stop?
yeah, just hold on. Director Jackson.
Two or three things to consider. It's an unopened road allowance is unmaintained. It's the ministry's gate, and it would be their decision to take. I'm not looking for a reaction. I'm stating a few things if I can. If it's an unmaintained road allowance, then the ministry may gate something. It's their choice and leave it for foot traffic only. Anybody who destroys ministry property is destroying ministry property. So whether or not a person could take a gate down is not a question for our local government to answer. It's that ministry. The ministry statement pretty clear to me, I actually worked for Ministry of Highways for 5 years. That property at the other end is under the Mines Act as an industrial site. And under the Mines Act, another ministry, they're responsible for ensuring safety. That's what the chair, Director DeBoon just referred to. They're reassessing the safety issues so that somebody doesn't go up to the face of the gravel that's been excavated by a large machine and have a landslide on it. So they're pretty aware of the issues. They're pretty aware of what you people want. They're pretty aware of all the concerns from that side. So I think they're assessing it. Well, that's what they've got to do. Whether they fence or bisect that site, maybe those would be some solutions. Beyond that, the reason I think Kevin Lewis stated that you still can't get to the river without a trespass because there's another jurisdiction there, the dike, an authority over the dike. And there's no license of occupation or any permit there. So there's several steps to work through here. So I can't expect a provincial ministry to say, we'll ignore the Mines Act, we'll ignore potential safety. Now it's been focused and highlighted. We're not going to just ignore that. They're telling us they're going to work through it. So I hope everybody would say, fine, work through it. As for their property, their gates, their stuff, I think, ask them. Kevin Lewis is a real person, lives in Nelson. He's given a phone number, phone him. But I would not suggest people come to us and demand that we do things that a provincial ministry has full-time, well-paid staff to deal with. Aside from that, yes, the chair is completely correct. There's an active process to work on public access to Go River. And it's not a simple flip the switch and it's done.
But that's not a government gravel pit gate. That is put up by the farmer.
We would have to talk to the Ministry of Transport. I will prescribe for that. You will, I will. So, no, I'm not here to argue that point. We're here to answer questions. Mary Jane, before you go, I will take the question from behind you. I think you're Bill, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just one question. The video meeting that you're going to have with the ministry and yourselves, will you notify the Go River Residency Association President, Don, as it includes the day?
Okay, so it's not a video meeting, it's in camera, and what that means, it's a private meeting between the agencies that are involved because of the issues. They're, as I said, they're legal and land issues.
Mm-hmm.
And so that meeting is not a public meeting. That meeting is to, first of all, I guess, identify the problem and work on gathering the information that's required. Joe, you could probably answer that better than I can.
Sorry, through the chair. Arnold, I just missed what you just said. Sorry, it just cut out for a second.
Okay, I had mentioned that some of the details on this will be addressed by an in-camera meeting between the agencies that are involved. And so we can't answer any questions on that because there have been no decisions made. So the question is, your question is, will this be a public meeting? Is that what you're asking, or will the
No,
information?
my question was, the RBCK and the Ministry of Highways should include the Go River Residency Association board members, or president at the very least, that all that land down there is involving the dike, which the dike's purpose is to protect the homes down there from flooding, not recreational purposes.
I don't know if they'd be invited to this first meeting. First of all, we'd have to just, there's a lot of details here that we need to work out. So at this point, I can't answer that question. I don't really know. Director Banner.
Just to further to that point, to identify that group as a stakeholder is probably prudent. Because then if there is an opportunity to wrap them in the conversation that comes out, you're not forgotten. So I think I would state that that group would be a stakeholder, yes, that should be for future conversation.
Go ahead.
When you say stakeholder, what's that include?
That the Diking District, South Dakota Diking District is a stakeholder in this conversation.
We're all members. Yeah. To date, each and every one of us. So if one of us, we should all go. Why?
No, there's a board that takes care and they have private meetings and then run that with the public.
We're not here to argue about that. Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair, to Kelly's point, to Director Vander's point, if there was ever the regional district was to move in any kind of a direction with the province on that piece of property, then yes, we would definitely bring in stakeholders conversations. We do that all the time, whether it's neighbors or other interested parties that may have an impact on a potential park property. So we would definitely do that. It would not be a surprise.
Thank you. Very Jane, you had a question. But I want to allow a couple more. Understand, we have a long meeting here. Arrange this so you can have as much of this done as possible. So you don't have to sit through the rest of our meeting. So I'll entertain a couple more questions, then we have to move on. Go ahead.
Yeah. There seems to be like perhaps a piece of information that that potentially is missing. Maybe like 6 years ago, the Trail Society was working on a project with Justin Dexter through the Ministry of Parks and Recreation. There is, to my understanding, a section of Crown land adjacent to the gravel pit. So therefore it was relevant to have Ministry of Parks look at that. And was developed, the file was developed to the point that a site planner did a plan for the potential park there and was submitted to the government to front counter, where it got several steps down the process. So there is a file somewhere on this, including another ministry that I think is probably relevant for this meeting. And a lot of work has been done, and there was a lot of work with the Trail Society with stated intent from the ministry that it would be a park. Regional directors were included in that, as was the town of Creston, who all expressed interest. Mayor Toyota and councillors at the time were there. I'm sure there's a record on it. Yes, so.
Can I just add to that?
I'm just curious if you have that information, or if potentially there is another file somewhere that's missing.
Through the chair. Yeah, through the chair, we do have that information, and Rec Sites and Trails is not pursuing that anymore. But we have been in touch with them.
If I might just add to that, I have a question that as recent as 4 days ago or 5 days ago, I received an email request from RDCK Parks where they were asking for input, and they raised this particular site that's in question here right now as one of the potential sites, and we're asking for input. So I don't know if your information is correct or mine is incorrect. So I have the email right from it. Could easily, share that.
Joe can answer that, and then I'll take one more question, and then honestly, we have a lot more meeting to do, so I appreciate that. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, so through the chair, it was something that we wanted to bring up just for people that are interested. I'm not sure that what we have identified in our maps are our present regional parks. People are able to identify through our regional parks, trails, and water access strategy work that we're doing right now, potential regional parks that or areas for that. Just do want to let the community know that there is quite a long and detailed survey, and there's also part of that process is an interactive map that the community can identify areas or properties or crown land that they feel would be of benefit for a regional park or even a water access point. So that process is ongoing.
Harry?
Yeah, for the intermediate, I'd suggest that is it in your jurisdiction, anybody here, to put a simple sign up outlining the rights of the public to that particular road up to the gravel pit, just so people know, and people from out of town, they're allowed to walk on that and make use of it in a responsible way. But I don't know if that would be.
Signage is coming.
Right?
Signage is coming.
Okay. Right, so that's a cooperative approach.
Ministry of Highways.
Oh, very good.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the signs will say, but they are providing signs. As we all know, the previous owner did not stop people from walking there. It started a tradition basically. And everybody wants that tradition to continue. But while we're dealing with this, we do have to respect the rights of the private property owners. And the road is a legal place to walk. But none of it, anything else right now would be considered lawful to access. And so those are some of the things we want to work out, is to see if there is a compromise or not. And so I don't know at this point, it's early in the development, but it was always a case of it ain't broke, don't fix it until property changed hands. And it changed hands lawfully, and they were allowed to buy it lawfully. So we have to recognize that. And I see your hand up, Maureen, but we have to get on with our.
Scratching your head.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, you don't have to stay in the whole much.
It's all very.
Let's take a 5-minute recess.
5 minutes. Roger.
You want to mute for a minute? Sometimes it's a good idea. Mulling folk.
Good. Oh, yeah. The,
Anyways. That's right. But like it's, like it.
Yes.
See that?
Yeah, it was a big issue for Mr. Binks, and Larry dragged me into it years ago, so that's a couple directions back, and Kelly's here.
Okay, we will reconvene. And with item 7.2, which is a discussion item, Central Committee Food Policy Council. Reverend Brandenburg requested a discussion, so
Great, thank you, through the chair. So I did bring this forward. It is an opportunity to discuss it at length. Here in the sub-region of Creston Valley, where somewhat unique, we do have our opportunities. We have some brilliant things moving forward along the lines of agriculture. I wanted to bring up this discussion to ensure that the work of the Food Policy Council is in fact in alignment with those activities and opportunities here in the Creston Valley area. So I guess I'll start off by just a very brief summary. The Food Policy Council is developing priorities and launching initiatives. Those are reasonable outcomes, but there is no measurables. There is some history there that has not shown any significant measurables or results from the money that we've invested into it. The simple word, there's a few phrases like food security and that sort of thing. Those are current buzz phrases, but that is a highly complex challenge that certainly one group can only be a partner of and cannot be leading the charge for. Some of the other outcomes, or a couple of the other outcomes that the group is pushing forward to, which it's in a reorganization. So prior to that, I never, as a member sitting on that board, I did not see any clear outcomes that did come out with the measurables. The new proposal suggests farm and food directory. I believe that should be membership driven. Education and food literacy is a good outcome, but once again, in the report, there's no measurables. It's confusing as well, the funding asks. Currently at $15,000 a year, with the ask of it continuing on with an increase, which is not clear what that is. And then an additional funding ask, which is unclear as to how much money is being really asked for. And once again, what are the measurables that will be coming out of that? Additionally, and probably just as important, we have locally here initiatives such as the Food Hub, Farmers Market, Fields Forward program. And there is no correlation or connection between Food Policy Council and our local group initiative. And I think that's a huge opportunity missed. So I guess my point of view is on this is that I would suggest or put on the table that until I would want to be opting out of the Food Policy Council and its funding until some specific results and measurables have come forward with that group that ties into our local elements. So that is my opening on this.
Director Jackman.
Yeah, so I have a few background things I wanted to share, just for what are the pros and cons, I think, of how this group's evolved. And I actually sat in the meetings, in the very first meetings. I think, Sangeeta, you were in the very first meetings, so we're in Nelson, we're in a basement-like room. I forget where the heck we were in some of the rooms. It was pretty low-key. And we had conversations about sort of groups that were boots on the ground trying to do something locally in your own backyard, which we have here well evolved now, like the Fields Forward and the Food Hub and the like, versus sort of more of a higher level. Are there other things that would make sense to push towards either local government and or the province? Are there barriers, the policy type stuff? And that's really where this work started. And I thought it had good merit at the time, and I think it still has merit. And whether or not it's at that level, whether or not it's benefiting any individual group here, it's kind of what you make of it. It's like the Economic Action Partnership. I'll get concerns from Area A, EDC, Service S107 people say, well, why isn't EAP doing this or why aren't they doing that? I say, did you write me a letter or did you go to a meeting and ask them to do that? And if you haven't done that, if you haven't gone to the Food Policy Council as, say, the Food Hub and say, we're doing this and we want you to do this for us to support us directly, they're not gonna. The squeaky wheel will get the grease. So I think there is a place for kind of the policy level to try and what Abra Bryn individually brought initially, I thought, was the thinking along the lines that, are we obstructing through, say, allowing an American firm to buy farmland in southern Vancouver Island and then fail to meet their quotas because they buy land with quotas, say for produce, because of their hiring practices or whatever, and then say that this can't work or there's a problem here. So they like now to fill their quota under license as import and then start importing product to BC, carrots or whatever that we could have easily produced here. Those are real things. And those are the policy level things that we have to be aware of Where are we missing out? Where is there a quota, a system in place, supply management? Something that's happening that may have looked great 123 years ago, but right now is obstructing us, making it difficult for the local farmer to produce. Do these barriers or these issues, do these things exist? A lot of them today are around labor. And if they do, is there something that can be done about it? And in that process, as just one little piece of it, is local government part of that obstruction? So I've had people wag their finger at me and you guys as well that, you know, why have we established this farm footprint, residential farm footprint, when somebody wants to be able to do what they can? And we say, well, we think we're leaning into the right direction for the affordability of land down the road. So Food Policy Council is to me at that level. Is there something like that that they observed in Peace River that they could bring down here and say, hey, you know what's kind of working to keep farmland farmable is this. I don't see them as doing what they have as their project for moving goods around necessarily. I thought they should be at the policy level. So the 20,000 asked to be a little bit of $800,000 or $900,000 or whatever. I didn't think that's what the Food Policy Council would be doing. I thought they would be doing more of looking at how, on a much bigger level, we can remove barriers to farming. And I think if we have anybody here that thinks there's some barrier to farming, whether it's provincial or local government, they should then go to the Food Policy Council and say, we think this is a problem, can you work on it? So that's where I see a separation. Good and bad things. Abra had a great mind for looking at that kind of thing. I think that was where her mindset was, policy level. I'm not sure, because I don't know the people now at all, if that's their current mindset, or they want to get into projects and leverage $1 million here and there and do something that the food hub in Creston should be doing, or doing something that should be independently done by that Slocan Valley group, not by the policy council. Like, are they wading into areas where they think, oh, we can leverage lots of money and look at the money we're flowing through, versus being a policy group? So I'm apprehensive about that. I also, and I messaged directly to Abra before she departed, she put out newsletters, and this is something I haven't seen, but I'm apprehensive. I'm just going to read it. This is from January 2020. Speaking to, quote, the urgent need to understand how systematic racism is manifest in food systems has only been highlighted by the events in 2020. So they started going down a path that is almost entirely going to fall in the province's jurisdiction. They're talking about practices of labor and how we bring in farm labor, how people are treated, taking advantage of people from other places for the convenience of making money here. There's real concerns around this kind of thing. In every country you can imagine, you know, you hear about Saudi Arabia, people don't work so much. People from Jordan work in Saudi Arabia, sweep the street, stuff like that. These are real issues. But when this started to come out, it came out loud, I thought, just before Abra's departure. That's a whole other policy level that I don't think that we can be participating in as well. So I would like to see the council, maybe they're not doing any of this now, but the council thinking more about local government barriers, good examples for land use, things that will make the farm more productive on any scale, small niche market up to large industrial. If they're going to do that, I will support them. If they're going to get into stuff that is more to do with immigration, federal and provincial law, I'm thinking they're getting beyond our realm, and we don't need to become experts in that. We can understand that as individuals. So those are social issues, but we can't afford to spend too much time focusing on those issues when we can't even do our own things like provide local parks and recreation effectively. So depending on what lane they stay in, what message I see in the near term, I would generally support the need for a policy-driven little think tank. I don't want to support a project-driven operation when we have them in our own backyard. So I'm on the fence right now. I don't think we have the ability as a sub-region to withdraw from anything. That's my other comment. This is a board level decision.
Any further discussion? Go ahead.
Since I was on the ground floor when the policy council was being created, even prior to that, and Amber Bryn, she was a visionary. She wrote our ag area plan. That ag area plan is implemented and manifested in many ways. Thinking about the farm advisory, all of our decisions around protection of agricultural land come from that ag area plan. And so I just wanted to highlight that. And then when the Food Policy Council was created, it was intended to be a higher level, as Director Jarman indicated. And there have been some amazing work done. When when the society formed, the Class A license for meat.
Class E became Class E. It was a big issue, local win.
And it was the Food Policy Council that advocated on behalf of our area to get that license in place for our region, which really helped a lot of the small scale farmers around our
And that was a federal win.
And that was the federal win, and that was, again, them championing that. The food guide that you see, that's intended to really highlight the agriculture in our area. And that, I believe, partially is funded through the people that advertise in the food guide and partially through the RBCK through a contribution. Our logo gets put on there. And then the marijuana regulations, when they came in, that was a huge endeavor that they took on to advocate on behalf of the marijuana licensing through the provincial government and federal government.
The small producer licensing was the barrier.
Yeah. So the issue right now, though, with Food Policy Council, and maybe this is a conversation that needs to happen, and I will mention it to Paris, who sits, and I believe you sit on the committee. So it's a good discussion to have. How are you going to reinvent yourself? Their main issue is they have no funding that they can access because they have the word policy in their title. CBT doesn't want to give funding, and no other board gives them funding because they consider them to be de facto government or something to that effect. So that's been a barrier for them. There are other food policy councils across the country and the US, and they're being funded through local governments, maybe with deeper pockets and big municipalities like in Vancouver, GTA, and GTA in Toronto area. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that these are the accomplishments, and yeah, they're reorganizing, and it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that. And I think Director Vandenberg being on their committee as well as Paris Marshall-Smith, it's something we can highlight what we would like to see as a regional district for the Food Policy Council.
Can I add a small point, Chair, because I did have a scribble here on the directory. That is another win. Started with subsidies, as a lot of things do, and it should now become self-funding, I believe. It's at that point. And I gave some pretty strong pushback a few years ago with my previous colleagues on this board. Some of them were putting an ad in, giving a couple or $5,000 discretionary grant and having their individual names published in that guide. And I said, that's totally wrong. It's the same as some of my colleagues used to have their names on the wall in the arena as supporting the arena. It's an RDCK owned building. We all support it through our endeavors as directors, as part of the board and staff. We don't have Craig's name on the wall anywhere. Craig's, as general manager. So that directory should be a source of funding as opposed to a handout. And so I have resisted supporting that kind of thing by grant. But to me, it's indicative of not using the opportunities that make sense, how to raise money by providing a meaningful local service to producers. It should be valued. And the other line of funding, I think, has been project money. And I would hate to see them stray because they will begin to compete with every little valley has its own group of people trying to get project. And I think that's inappropriate. Either remain a policy group with a little bit of money from their guide, or they are overlapping with our other endeavors. But thanks, that was a lot of good points. They have done a lot of good work.
Yes, and thank you for clarifying some of that and bringing it forward to the table. That's the beauty of our group, being able to 360 discuss some of these things. And I'm in agreement that there is a need for a certain level of policy council, the work that it does. Perhaps it's a name change that needs to occur. A restructuring needs to still happen. I still cannot commit to what is proposed in the report because it doesn't have enough tangibles. I will be relying on the conversation with our local groups, our food hub and the Farmers Market Fuel Forward program, and seeking their direction on how the connectivity ought to be, what is the value of the policy council, and some of the worthwhile tangible wins that they ought to be going after. Until such time, I would only support discretionary grant funding by directors. With that, I would want them to, and I would be happy to continue sitting on and helping in that endeavor, reevaluate and restructure their mandate and a clear direction as to the work they ought to be doing. But until such time, I have no problem saying that area C, and perhaps this group, I'm not comfortable with the funding requests and not understanding what the tangibles are. And until such time, would like to remain open-minded, but I'm also going to focus more on our local experts and how they perceive their needs to be. And in hopes that there is some good direct connection. Damon did even point out that it's on his intent to reach out to the Creston Valley. To me, that should have been done a long time ago. That should have been very clear, the opportunities. And if that hasn't happened yet, then I want to control the funding until I can see some real good return on investment through this program and this policy council.
Director Chapman.
And to that point, they absolutely were here more than once. I don't know if Paris was there, you were in Lister Hall with us, meeting with the farmers of Canyon Lister, that sit down, direct conversations. They were here. Might be half a dozen years ago that they were here. I don't know what their mode of operation is now, but absolutely, they did sit in the room with people who live right here and say, what's going on? Where can we help you? What are your concerns? So they can easily revert to that. It's not
Something's been lost.
Yep. Abra was lost. I think their key person went off to complete her master's and work on other interests. PhD. I was going to say it was long haul, whatever she's doing. Yeah, PhD.
So is there any requests or direction you want?
Yes, if I may.
Yes.
I would say that Creston Valley Services Committee opt out of funding the Food Policy Council, but continue to monitor measurables and propose outcomes. And I don't know if I need to add an and, but funding ought to be discretionary grant consideration.
So
I think it's important to send a strong message with that. It may not go much further, but it does bring that to the table again in front of the board.
Point of clarification, Chair. I don't think we can make a motion to that effect. Our bylaw for this, and the only one that's operating functional, the bylaw exists for several clusters like Slocan Valley. Our bylaw says we can discuss any of our shared services. So we can have a East Resource Recovery meeting if the chair permitted it to be on the agenda. And I got, we're going to have one in a week anyway, teeing that up. So separately. But this is not a shared service of ours. This is part of a larger service of the board. So I would expect if we make something as a motion like that, it won't appear on the agenda, it'll be rejected. So I wouldn't try to make it as a motion that looking for clarification. Is there a better way to send that message?
I'd be open to that. This message, I think, is the opportunity here. There is benefit in this, but we just need to stop, pause, and rediscover what that is.
Chair, if I could?
Yes, you can.
Yes.
Through the chair, I might suggest that there might be some direction that could be made from this committee on what your expectations are before the Central Food Policy Council funding request for 2025 comes to the board. Because when they were there for a delegation, it was stated to them that our budget season is closed, obviously. And if you'd like to bring something forward, please bring it forward in the fall. So I guess the question might be, what
would this committee expect to see from the Central Food Policy Council for the Creston Valley before being able to support that funding request that comes to the board in the fall?
It does, and it allows me through the chair to go offline and pursue that a little bit further with Stuart, and then share that with the group at some point in time.
So if I could, we could ask Sangeeta to capture, if it's possible, because you're pretty aware of what they've done and what we may be concerned about. Is it fair just to leave it to request General Manager Development Services, summarize without us trying to repeat everything? Have we said enough? They should be talking to the food hub. They should be, knowing what Fields Forward needs. They maybe should have letters of support from those groups. We should have more details on their policy orientation versus project orientation, that kind of thing. Is that fair to just leave it wide open and then hopefully by next month we kind of see that framed?
Okay with that.
I think in reading the strategic plan, the goals, I think part of your concern is it doesn't seem like there's much that's quite specific to our needs in this valley. And I think that part of their strategic plan, maybe to gear it a little more so that we feel more included in what they're doing, because I think at this point, I'm not sure how that can specifically apply. I see their goals. If they actually they work on those goals and can be successful, they really have to keep in mind what our needs are here in those goals, and if in achieving those goals, pay attention to needs of our valley, because it seems like this is a function kind of outside the valley when we have a function inside the valley that maybe doesn't feel as included. I'm just sort of interpreting what you've been saying, assuming that is that correct?
Yes, and if I may, the strong sense I got, and I've looked at this a number of times, is motherhood and apple pie. Okay, we've got plenty of that. What we need is what are the clear, relevant things that make effective change, and let's project them, or let's policy them, so that we can act on them and come away and put measurables on. No measurables doesn't stand up with me. You gotta have a measure. And to get some measurables on there so that we can come back and celebrate them.
Are we clear on this one? Okay. Any further discussion? Let's move on then to another discussion. Clean energy transition. Again, this was requested by Director Vanderworks. I'll let you open on that too.
So once again, this is an opportunity to explore and discuss the work that the Kootenai Clean Energy transition, and it was a pilot that has completed. But the questions that were raised in my mind is what was the function, or what was the intended goal? You can read in the report the purpose of adopting carbon emissions reduction by Kootenai residents, organizations, governments, and First Nations. That's a pretty lofty purpose for a subgroup. I don't know that that's realistic. The other outcome that I thought was quite interesting was the supporting of a building industry through a community of practice. And that is to provide a level of training and information to would-be builders to build with good practices, to build to support lower emissions and that sort of thing. Two things that come to my mind. Number one, we have a BC building code that's very aggressive and very progressive. Why do we need anything more than that? Secondly, it's not clear that the work on this group is supported by BCIT, which is probably the premier training and monitoring facility when it comes to the BC building code. So my comments are around, while the report suggests if we were to move forward, we would continue with KCET, which is the building group and its best practices. I would be hesitant on that. I would say, hang on here, let the building code do its job. Let the training that is necessary with contractors and home builders like myself, continue. And let the BC building code run its course. This is a provincial opportunity. This is a provincial matter. I'm hesitant that on a lower government or local government scale, that we be jumping in with taxpayer money on this, when I'm not real clear that it's necessary. That's my opinion.
I asked Sherry Mata, who's the lead on this project out of the community sustainability team, to provide some points, I guess, for further clarification. So key points for the 3-year pilot program, which is now completed. One is 37 training events were delivered to 710 contractors across the 3 regional districts. And these training events were on the BC Building Code, as well as other things like installation of HVAC systems and so on. And number 2 is supported the town of Creston on their contractor training workshop in 2023 after, another event planned for Creston is in 2025. Increase home performance contractor network. So at one time there wasn't a good network, and also folks who were trying to access HVAC systems didn't really have, the people that were installing them didn't really have an understanding of the subsidies that were available to residents, and vice versa. The residents weren't aware. So the HVAC, 19 active HVAC members who are installers gathered as of January 2022. And of that network, many things have been improved, like increased home performance through installation of windows, installation of doors, and such things. And these HVAC installers also have been registered now. They weren't previously registered. You have to be registered in order to be able to access the subsidies on behalf of the homeowner. Also, they've supported colleges. So BCIT is somewhat intertwined in, not necessarily a partner, but as a resource. So colleges to provide training within the existing programs and specialty workshops. That's been also ongoing. For example, solar installation. And then Accelerate Cookies, which was 1.0 was a few years ago. We actually won an award for that one, but this one is 2.0, and they did receive, I think, $1 million just to help subsidize installation of new chargers, and that has actually occurred throughout many community halls and public buildings throughout our 3 regional districts. So it's a tri-regional district partnership. There is a next step with this group, and that is to establish a community of practice with the goal to continue and accelerate high performance buildings within RDCK, and including energy efficiency, embodied energy, customer resilience, building resilient communities. So I just wanted to share that with you as part of this conversation.
And thank you for that. It's in the report. I did allude to a few things. I guess my point is that we need to be I think we should just stay in our lane. I think that the building industry, certainly information available to me as a home builder was there. I just went looking for it, and I have a great resource from our RDCK staff to help me with that, to navigate it through. I don't know that we need to be creating a new lane here, and so that's really where I want to offer this conversation around. The BC Building Code is very clear and is very progressive. You just need to take the time to understand it, and there are resources out there already that our taxpayers don't have to pay for, other than communications with their building department.
Go ahead, Director Jack.
Yeah, thanks. A few things, like another good point to have this conversation. A few things I found interesting, like things like the charging stations. I thought, uptake by owners of shopping centers with big parking lots and restaurants would have been stronger, and it wasn't very strong. because of the uncertainty. Was it too soon for, full EVs and, or plug-in hybrids? But it was good that we tried. I think that we sort of introduced the public at large to that topic. So that was again. On the training prior to this program, I'd gone to a few at Selkirk, in Castlegar, and then also in Nelson, a few training courses myself as a much more active builder at the time about exactly this kind of thing, energy efficiency and, door blower tests and stuff like that. And I thought they were very worthwhile. My experience previously with Kootenay Lake Chamber of Commerce, and the only member of the Southern Interior Contractors Association that I knew in the entire area, and I knew every contractor pretty well, was Sam Anderson out of Crawford Bay of all places. And we weren't plugged into that loop, that community of expertise where people would share. Like as an engineer, I can plug into the association, find out stuff. As a planner, you've got support groups, economic development practitioners have a support group. Our contractors weren't plugged in, period. Certainly not to the Southern Interior Association. And if you look at it, I just pulled it up again for now, it's 90+% Okanagan and Kamloops. That's what it is. It's not a Southern Interior anything. So there's a huge gap for the mom and pop contractors to actually find out what is all this about, get certification so they're eligible, so they can access the grants. So I think that was a serious win. And I do hope that'll continue, because I don't think we're going to find contractors here joining the Southern Interior Association, because they'll find it's totally Okanagan dominated. So I think there's a gap. I agree with Director Vandenberg. I don't think it's necessarily our lane to get very far into that, but I think that's a worthwhile ongoing endeavor to make sure that local contractors, you can drive an hour or two, meet people that they're familiar with, can sit down and learn something without feeling embarrassed that maybe they should have already known. I think I could name quite a few contractors who I don't know if they have the building code. And I just downloaded the last update of the code. They're massive documents. I'm not sure that every builder is following the code, or they just don't have my earliest code is from the late 70s. I keep it as a keepsake. It's a paperback. It's that big and it's shy of an inch thick. My current code is 2 big binders. So we need that connectivity, face-to-face workshops, hands-on, looking at what does a window look like now? How do you do this and that? So I think that is the strongest thing we can get out of this, is still trades education and certification so that everybody can get these grants and benefit from, because it's your tax money that's subsidizing all these grants. How we go about that, I'm not sure. And I'm not really clear from Sherry's report either. Like, is the intent that, maybe through the chair to Sangeeta, is the intent that we step further into this, or that we really are going to step back and see where it lands with this the industry community, the building industry community of practice? Where do you see us landing?
Yeah, so it's been an evolving conversation on clean energy transition. And based on what I'm hearing from Sherry, the goal is to continue the acceleration of high performance buildings, which there will be a message being put out by the RDCK soon. And the intent is to increase energy efficiency, embody energy, so that's in the buildings themselves, and then aligning it with fire smart and overall resilience of the home building. So really working with this group to continue that education of industry. And I know that the building team sometimes goes to these sessions as well, so that they can talk to the contractors directly as they're training. And it's kind of a learning experience, even for the building officials, to sit there with the contractors to get that information. So I think that work is going to continue in addition to what I mentioned, in continuing to support contractors to continue supporting our homeowners in this area and builders.
Supplemental on that then. So, I mean, a lot of that is professional development, which our building inspectors have to do every day. I had a conversation with Eric a few days ago about foreshadowing the order and council changes in 2025 to the brand new code. Like it's not every 4 or 5 years we get changes continually. So that's continuing education. So I guess my question is more around, say, Sherry's participation. We're looking at staff time to help guide and make connections versus giving a lump of money to other staff outside of our organization, because that lump of money, in my mind, should still come from BC Hydro and Fortis, because they both have their 2030 and 2050 commitments, which they are not making. So that money to fund that outside stuff, I hope the ask is not going to be from us. Is the ask through the chair just for staff time right now, like for a portion of Sherry's time? Where does that sit?
Yeah, through the chair, I'm not sure if they're asking us for money right now. I'd have to check that. I think, yeah, Sherry's involvement on the committee is primarily one thing, and that what Sherry can communicate to them is what the directors advise her that is something that they're interested in continuing with. I wasn't here at the last board meeting, so I'm not sure what the discussion was on Sherry's report at the table, but Sherry will be providing more information in the future, and we'll continue to maybe meet with Director Vandenberg to get clarity on what it is that you're seeing as a gap, and maybe Sherry can communicate that out. That would be my suggestion. At this point, I can't answer that.
We didn't talk about it at board, which is why Kelly, Director Vandenberg, said, let's talk about it. So thank you. We didn't talk about it at board. It's information.
That's always the case. So it is just something in final. Yeah, there is a challenge for people to get the right information. Not everybody can read the business or building code like Gary can, and I'm not bad at it. But I do know what my resources are, and I rely on them. To know that there's resources available is the gap, is the missing opportunity. To have further sessions like Brandon put on last year through BCIT, funded by Fortis, was invaluable, that 2-day workshop. And the business or the building inspectors were there, so it's that hand-on with contractors, and that networking itself pays off dividends and dividends. So that type of activity I would support, but it's almost like there is an opportunity here. Let's sit down and write a business plan. Let's think this thing out, and then let's see what it might look like before we really start charging or committing forward or creating a new lane. It's all about putting some thought into and writing up a plan.
When I read this again yesterday, I did it through the lens of my own house. What I want to do to create more energy and energy efficient home. And the sources that are linked here and the work that they're doing is applicable to my desire as a do-it-yourselfer to increase the energy efficiency of my home. So I see value with this, not only as a contractor, but as just a private citizen. Of course, I want to know what's available and what sort of funding I could get in my own home for grants and stuff, because I see other people doing it. And so eventually I haven't walked down this road myself, and I would like to. And I want this to be one of my better sources of information.
So through the chair, the REEP program, the Regional Energy Efficiency Program, we just found out last week that we did receive. Our contractor is the city of Nelson. And so we just received funding through loan through the city of Nelson to continue delivering that program for the region. That's where you get a concierge service where you can contact an individual and they can tell you where some subsidies are available and what contractors to employ. REEP is connected to KCET only by way of their collaborating. They participate in this meeting so that everybody's in the loop of, okay, what are the gaps in our contractor services? What are, maybe some things that are working? And so a homeowner will be able to, once we launch REEP again, 2.0, we'll be able to contact, and you can still contact them right now. To get some idea of how to access the federal, provincial, and other levels, I guess, local government funding and or supports for energy efficiency.
Anything further?
Well, good. Good discussion. Thank you.
Right.
we can't share this in this detail before impossible, but
We do a consent agenda and knock an hour off the front end of the board, we might.
yes,
We might.
these are worthwhile conversations, so.
Our next item then was a request that was brought to me, regarding flying flag, because, we've declared June as Pride Month in the town of Creston. There was a request that we fly the pride flag at town hall, which we will be doing. And, I don't have the authority to say, yeah, let's do it here. I just wanted to have that discussion to see if, that's something that we can do or should do, or should that we didn't do it. I just wanted to run that by my directors.
A question to Joe, perhaps through the chair, or Craig. I don't think we have any policy about any organizations, flags represent. Is there anything right now at all, or is it wide open?
No, there's not. I asked Stuart. There's no policy on flags, but ICK.
And when we discuss it at town council, we don't have a specific policy on flags either that we do want to develop, because we recognize that there are other declarations that would probably want flags for as well. So we have recognized through motion, we did decide that we would fly the pride flag. I assumed that the requester had a flag for us, but they didn't, so we had to actually purchase one or find one. But we also have to add an extra flagpole to our building, because we have 3 flagpoles, and we really don't want to take down the flags that are there. If we have a flag and special recognition, we want a special flagpole for it, so we don't have to take down other flags. So that's all part of this. That's a discussion we had in town hall. Again, this is a building owned by RDCK, that's why I bring it up here. I don't know if anybody can answer my question.
Through the chair.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Craig would say the same thing. So, like, as there's no policy. So if the commission, believes that that's what they want us, concurs that that's what they would like us to do, we would remove the RDCK flag and put up the pride flag in its place during the period that the commission would like to have it up there for. So if that's for the month of June, it could be done for that.
Okay. Any discussion, a motion? Yeah.
Well, this year, if I don't have any particular difficulty with it, and a banner might make sense, not having another flagpole, that they would say, well, put a banner up this year. And then either between now and a year from now or sooner, we could think about, well, would we entertain banners or any other, sort of notice or statements, versus put another flagpole up. But wouldn't the banner be his same option?
Simple question that is, who makes the banner and how much does it cost? I do know, because our town staff investigated this, go to Amazon and buy a pride flag for less than $100. And so I think that's probably the route we're gonna go to town of Creston, unless somebody wants to supply us with a flag. I think a banner will cost more. Maybe the labor to put up a banner is more than taking down one flag and putting up another, so that's what I've learned anyway.
This is a tricky one to navigate, I do believe, not because of whom is requesting. It is an inclusive conversation. It is where you start and where you stop. Who has the rights and abilities to take some space on pole or not? There is no policy around this, and I am reluctant to suggest anything until we have a proper policy in place that has been debated around the board of our directors for any type of flag other than state flag, which by state flag I mean is your government, your local, provincial, federal governments. I believe that in a public space, those are appropriate. I think that there's some wisdom in political neutrality when in public spaces because it opens it opens the public, like ourselves, to jump into conversations that are very, very complex. And I'll go back to where does it start, where does it stop? Who has the right to ask who? Then you're like, I just see this getting messy. So I think political neutrality in public spaces is important at this point in time, until such time as that we have debated a policy around flags. I would not support any of this right now. I think it's not inclusive.
Well, I don't disagree because I think we need policy. I think policy is a step in the direction that we should go. I know that when we have recognition for a certain group, we have had questions from other groups, why aren't you recognizing us? So it does take us down a path that becomes complex. So I do feel that I would entertain a motion that directs that to have to like a policy for discussion at the RDCK board, because it is all the buildings that we were talking about are RDCK owned facilities. So if you're willing to make that motion in a second.
I would be happy to make that motion. I think that obviously this is coming forward. If this is the first time and the 10th time it's going to come forward again, we ought to be proactive by at least doing our diligence around a policy to do with flags.
We have a seconder for that.
I'll second that. So discussion, can it be on flags or banners? A banner you can buy for $30 to $100 as well. I just looked up. So it's the price of the actual unit. Maybe some other groups have a banner or something to celebrate, whatever.
Yeah.
We may not want to put up a $3,000 flagpole or a $5,000 flagpole if in fact the policy covers banners and flags.
Yeah.
So
I would be fine with that. I think that's indeed a part of the conversation.
And just one thing I'd like to add as well, that with the policy, I think we would, once we have a policy that is applicable, I would suggest also that we accept a donated banner or donated flag if it is right for the occasion, if it actually promotes or is a visible sign of the actual group that you are recognizing. That I would like that to be part of it, because I think there are people that would donate to certain signs and banners, and we shouldn't rule that out. Yes. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Okay, so that's our request then, is that we come up with. Yeah, similar to what we're doing on town hall, but we haven't decided to fight. Put up a pole and flag in the town hall. Okay, next is the Imagine Cooking Partnership, and that's you, Director Chapman.
yeah, thank you. So, and I believe, let me close a few things here. Leah is possibly still in the meeting.
I'm here, yes.
So I guess, thoughts, the one is, I'm concerned that things like Imagine Kootenai or formerly Invest Kootenai are not fully understood or appreciated for what they can be. So I wanted to give a tiny little bit of history, and I hope not being too repetitive, that the way that this program, and to me it's really kind of a web-based tool for investors, for people either seeking to buy or people seeking to sell businesses with or without real estate. May just be goodwill, maybe the actual properties. The way we're managing this has changed substantially in the last year. And what we had done initially, it was coordinated by Community Future Center Kootenai. They did a lot of the, because they're involved with businesses and new businesses intimately with part of their mandate. They did coordination and managed money and all this stuff quite easily. We had support from Columbia Basin Trust at the time. Columbia Basin Trust at one point said, well, we want to wean you off of that funding, make this more sort of a member-driven initiative, we went to marketplace essentially and said, well, will somebody short of Community Futures manage this process for us, where you have communities, whether it's Grand Forks and their rural areas, or Nelson ENF, or a standalone for one point in time Area A, or Revelstoke is a standalone. All of these different communities or entities wanted to have a profile online where they'd say, here's some local businesses that are open for investment, and here's a little bit of a statement about what our community's like. What is it like to live here, to work here, to recreate here? So when we went down the path of a consultant, I believe most of the members found that we were spending more and more money on what ifs that were duplication. So there was concerns of, well, what's the challenge to business? Well, staff is a challenge, hiring people. And so what's this challenge to hiring people? Is it money to pay them? And no, it's housing. And all of a sudden, we're down rabbit holes that are duplications of what the province is working on, what local government's working on, things our planning staff are trying to do to make housing more easier to develop housing. And we weren't getting the basics, which are, what does your community have to offer, being up to date on the website, in terms of a nice place to live, somewhere to raise your kids or to enjoy your retirement or whatever in between. And what are the business and investment opportunities? And whether the investment opportunities there or not, who's even interested in coming here with their money that they can just create their own business. So that's what we've leaned back into. And we said, how are we going to make this happen without hiring consultants and spending the first $100,000 off the top on somebody who doesn't live here? And not to say we didn't have some very interesting, good conversations through these consultants. Some of the people involved did live exactly here. Some, like one bright individual who was very engaged to do all the businesses in this part of the Kootenays at least. So we've pulled back to where we said, okay, well, we have economic development practitioners in the area who are pretty well embedded in their communities, understand what's going on, and for a few hours on the side of their desk can manage this Imagine Kootenay administration as well as pretty well any consultant could, without needing that $50,000 or $100,000 of full-time equivalent horsepower. So Nelson and District, through the experience and talents of Tom Thompson, said, yeah, they'll take on a strong lead role. And the Upper Columbia Valley, through Pete Bork's talents, said they'll hold money and administer money for membership fees and the like. That's something they can just do. So we've dropped the consultant side. It's very much a homegrown initiative now. And when we looked at that, and we said, okay, well, there's membership fees to keep the website functional, to have some IT support for that, and to also have a sort of a global coordinator who is paid part-time to try to jump on problems and fix things that just need fixing in the moment in case Pete or Tom aren't available. And when we looked at the fee structure, we said, well, the things that are important is you have a web presence so that investors can see what we are, where we are, who we are. And we also have a local first point of contact who's well plugged in and knowledgeable. That's Leah, so I'll stop talking in a couple of minutes. That can, if there's an inquiry, respond to that. Somebody from New Zealand at one point contacted Trail, don't know why, sold their paint business, wanted to become a farmer. And the person at Trail would have been Terry Van Horn at the time, called Tom Thompson and said, well, not a lot of farming opportunity for what they're looking for in Trail. And Tom said, well, not a lot in Nelson. Land's pretty expensive. It's small lots. Said, you should be looking at Slocan or Creston. So they leapfrogged over to Creston. And the person said, oh, yeah, this is more what I want. So you need a first point of contact when inquiries come in, that people understand what not just one community's investment opportunity is, but the entire network. And so that's why all these practitioners meet quarterly, and I generally sit in on all the meetings as one of the elected reps and talk about what's going on in their communities. So IK, Imagine Kootenay, has a bit of a new administrative look, a new model. It might have a new partner or two in the near future. Gave a little presentation at East Kootenay there before the hospital board meeting last time, and that's generated one and maybe two other areas, maybe a third, that are interested in joining. We grow a little bit. It'll help sort of cover the baseline cost of the website. And the other change we made then is we said, well, say we collect $10,000 from a cluster of partners for the fee. But we're gonna keep 60% of that to make the website work and do that technical stuff, and the other 40% goes back to the first point of contact, whatever entity they're embedded, and helps them fund that little bit of extra time that it takes to answer these inquiries. And so, I don't know if I've said it enough about IK in the past, if this is anything new I'm saying right now, but also just to kind of reintroduce Leah, because as our Economic Action Partnership lead, she also has a role to support IK. And I think we went through another budget process where you guys were, you're in the headlights, maybe condescending, but you had 1,000 light items of budgets, and this was one of them out of the dozens of services we support. I didn't think there was a deep enough understanding as to why are we peeling off a little bit of money to support Imagine Kootenai. So we peel off a little bit from service S107, S108. It goes to the overhead, and then 40% of that comes back to the people we were funding anyway, KES like Leah, to actually be responsive to any inquiries. So Leah, I was wanting to put to you, if I can, through the chair, are you seeing activity on the IK website lately as it returned to the functionality that we might have had a few years ago?
Yes, actually, we have had a couple more inquiries of late. People requesting more information about our communities than we had seen previously. So I think that's a very positive sign that this relaunch of Imagine Kootenai is really paying off. And Gary, if I can add on to what you said, I think all the partner communities this time round, now that it's a homegrown solution, really wanted to see a better return on investment. And as Gary has pointed out, actually the amount of money going to the IK administration has been reduced by 40%. And that money instead goes to the first points of contacts to better enhance first points of contact's ability to be as responsive and proactive as possible in helping to further promote our communities as excellent sites for investments. And that's a really important function for smaller communities because people, especially people coming from outside, they may know many of the larger centers, but do they really know our communities here in the Kootenays? Probably not. So that marketing piece is very important. So we're attracting investment, the establishment of new businesses. We're also attracting the purchase of existing businesses and people who are retiring, who need to find a willing buyer to take over that business and continue that business's service to the community. And at the same time, we're attracting skilled workers and residents, which is, of course, another very important piece. So yes, I would say that there has been, fortunately, some uptick in inquiries. And yes, I'd like to reiterate that I also consider this to be a much better business proposition for communities than it was under the previous contract.
Director Manager.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Leah, from the chair. I guess my observation is, the first thing is I think economic development is not as high priority as I'm accustomed to seeing or I'd like to see in our area. So that's just a general statement. The Imagine Kootenai is an opportunity to step up economic development. I'm on their site right now under the community profile, and of the 3 links that are there, one of them doesn't go anywhere. Nor do any of them take us to our local resources, our local experts, that being perhaps the chamber, that being perhaps Leah's office with our EAP. And I think that that's a huge gap. So there needs to be work to be done on this website if further money is going to go in that direction for the benefit of economic development. There's a huge opportunity lost. Additionally, the governance of this is by other chamber of commerce, and nowhere in here is the board of directors making the decisions. Not posting the board of directors, I think, is an opportunity lost as well, because I honestly can't say how does our local business group communicate through to ensuring that there is good opportunity through the work of Imagine Kootenai. I don't know if that's even known. And it should be something that's very clear. If we want this, if we're gonna put money into this, we need for it to be transparent, we need for it to be accessible. And so I think there's still a couple of opportunities through that. And being that agriculture is such a large component of business offering in our valley, perhaps the community profile ought to have a direct link to like the food hub and their good business ideas and fuels forward. If it's in partnership with the chamber, in partnership with our EAP. But right now I see this as not doing a very good job on that website. And I'm unsure as to who's making the decisions, who are the board members. And I think it can be a lot more transparent. And I think that needs to be communicated to Imagine Kootenai.
Thanks. So you are communicating it to the people who participate in the steering committee, because I'm one of them.
I don't know, because your name's not on here.
So the reason, it is not a board in terms of that votes and says yes or no, hard decisions so much as a collaboration. Every partner can have 2 participants. And this is partly why I'm bringing it up, because if somebody wants to bunt me, go for it, like willingly. I've stepped up as president or chair and vice chair of this to help it enable and transition and go through various morphs over the last decade and a half. So that generally what you'll find is out of a funding group that will be one of the elected reps that will normally step up. Most don't. A lot of the elected reps choose not to get involved in the conversations, plus their first point of contact, in this case now Leah. Over the 15 odd years, 16 maybe I've been involved with this, we've seen the chambers of commerce invited, engaged, and then their staff change. So the Creston Chamber of Commerce has had how many directors over the last 15, 16 years? Half a dozen or more? Kootenai Lake Chamber of Commerce has never had staff. That's not true. They've had part-time limited staff off and on over that many years, over the 27 years I've been here, because I was Kootenai Lake Chamber president for a number of years prior to being elected. And they do or don't engage depending on who the individual is. So it's a little bit like I said to the Food Policy Council. If you see something, I love the questions and the comments, very much appreciate them. If you think you want to know more, you want something out of it, you have to ask very deliberately for that, to say, I want this. So the website, the community profile is wide open. There's banners, and the one that hasn't been working is connections to employment. Lately, that's been the most problematic on employment opportunities. As a bit of an aside, if you're coming as an investor, you might be coming as 2 people. One wants to invest and run a business. The other one doesn't want to be in that business. They want to do something else. They have other talents, skills, and passions. So that's why the employment job posting made sense. But if you want the community profile to look different, then as the funding partners, we need to just make that statement. If we want to add links to something else, absolutely possible, because the control over the community profile is local. The base platform, the base functionality has never been perfect. That's got to be fairly fixed, because whether it's a dozen different communities or clusters of partners, you got to have some baseline that's manageable. But it is malleable, and absolutely why I'm focusing on this right now, because I agree. I haven't seen either Chamber of Commerce, who are currently talking about maybe there should be one. I think I'm scheduled for a meeting in a couple of weeks to chat about that they haven't stepped forward and say, here's a tool we can use. And I haven't seen other groups step forward, like the Food Hub, and say, we're an industry, here's a tool we can use. We can have a presence on this. Just like at the Economic Action Partnership, we've invited ag reps, forestry reps, local government reps, different business, service industry reps, tourism reps, and we have gaps and voids, vacancies in those positions as a board continually, because those groups don't seem to step forward and ask for something. Then at a coffee shop or parking lot or supermarket, I'm asked, how come you're not doing this for me? I say, did you ask for it? So It is wide open right now. That's why I'm bringing it up. What would we like it to be? It can be more.
Dr. Vandenberg.
There is an opportunity here. And you're right. You need to be aware of it. You need to ask for those things that could be. And so I would say that we ought to, as a group, consider in our next EAP meeting, a request that regular reporting the Imagine Kootenai in terms of their analytics. And that type of information certainly give the group something to think about and keep it top of mind as that opportunity, and to explore other opportunities and suggestion to enhance the work that Imagine Kootenai does. Because prior to this, there's a couple of directors in this room that really had no clue what this was and what it was about and what it could be. I think maybe if we were to utilize the resources of EAP, our Economic Action Partnership, to at least report the analytics on a quarterly basis, it would give it the attention that it deserves.
Can I ask Chair through to Leah? I used to see monthly analytics and there was too much, and now I think it is quarterly. Leah, are you getting quarterly analytics through either Pete or Tom right now? Numbers of hits on the website, duration, page views?
I think we're not there yet. So maybe something to add as well to Director Vandenberg, your comment about the website. So this has just been redeveloped by under the leadership of Tom Thompson from the Nelson Chamber and Pete Burke from the Columbia Valley Chamber. So we're actually now at this stage of should Creston and areas A, B, and C decide to sign on as partners, there would then be that conversation about what we want this to look like, and all these various options that are available, which of them we want featured on the website. So we did in the past receive quarterly analytics, but to be honest, under the previous contract holder, I don't know how valuable that information was. It was kind of hard to get from them. Okay, but exactly, how many business sales did result from Imagine Kootenai. But especially now with the new iteration of Imagine Kootenai, there is a much clearer commitment to transparency. So I do believe that information, while not available yet, will be forthcoming, and they're committed to making it as clear as possible what the value is of Imagine Kootenai for each community. And also something that I'd like to add is that it is a fairly flexible partnership, or a fairly flexible commitment, in that should a community sign up for 1 year and no longer wish to be part of it, if they don't see the value of it after a 1 year period, they need only give notice before the next fiscal year. So it's not a very long-term commitment.
Further questions? Anything else on it then?
So this afternoon, we could put it on the EAP next quarterly meeting, would make sense. I was just trying to find, because Pete Bork did show me Upper Columbia Valley analytics from a month or two ago. I'm not sure how he sourced those. It's available to everyone with backhand access, which I don't have, don't quite understand. But Google Analytics are available at all times for hits, page views, numbers of pages and how many individual viewers versus multiple time or repeat viewers. Everything you get from any other website from Google Analytics is available. But I have no idea how to extract that, but somebody has.
And if I may, being that I've worked through websites in my past, the analytics set them up. Our tourism society does a great job of harvesting their analytics for our discussions. But yes, those analytics are available from the administration on the back end, and they're right there. You just simply print them. You can change how they present themselves, but it's very simple to do. And it's highly effective. It generates great conversation, and it shows trends.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, moving forward. Airport master plan, and probably will see the update from our CAO. Like more on there that we have chosen the contractor and we'll be getting the master plan. And Mike, did you want to comment? I see you there.
Thank you very much, and just through the chair. I just wanted to give an update to the Creston Valley Services Committee on the issuance of a successful RFP to HM Aero Aviation Consulting out of Ottawa. We did receive 5 proposals. All the proposals were really good. So it was really sort of a difficult decision-making process, but HM Aero does come very highly recommended from a number of smaller communities that they've done airport master plans with. And so they were the successful proponent. One of the things, though, is that all the proposals did come in at a slightly higher rate than we anticipated. Originally, we did project this project to be, that budget of about 80,000. But that was including about 65,000 for the consultant, and then leaving about 15,000 in contingency to be able to help fund any additional meetings or travel or public engagement sessions, and so on and so forth, advertising. So all the proposals come in from a range of 75,000 to 89,000. So HM Aero was kind of in the middle at 79,000 and change. So we did take it to council. We did decide to approve and go move forward with it. And I'll work with the consultant. There's a couple of items in there that we may be able to scale back a little bit, save a little bit of dollars on it. But sort of the worst case scenario that I sort of foresee is that depending on how we do the advertisement for the open house that they anticipate that they would like to do, sort of to gather some stakeholder input at the airport. If there's some cost to that, we may, we may need an additional $5,000 into that project. But we'll sort of know by the end of the year as the project starts to wrap up, headed into the new year in 2025.
Director Jackman.
Yeah, thank you. So maybe through the chair first to CAO Moore and then perhaps to Joe. We split the funding over 2 years. We have a hard commitment, which the town is going to enter into on our behalf. So I always worry about, when is the time to do a financial plan amendment? And I'm not sure when the consultation will take place. So if we have to pay the consultant the full amount, like it's commitment, and we need 10,000 now to do some early on consultation, then our total commitments will exceed what we've allowed for. So I guess to Mike first, will we need that public outreach or consultation money this fiscal year? And then if so, the question to Joe would be, should we just do a financial plan amendment right now to add 15,000 to the budget, maybe 10 this year, 5 next?
Well, I can probably answer that and save Joe having to answer. I don't think we need to amend anything right now. Again, there's a couple of options in there that I'll discuss with the consultant as we move forward. The 79,930 was for everything included, so there is a little bit of room in there for some of that advertising and that, I think, within that budget. If not, because it was split over the 2 years, the town certainly can fund if we're short $5,000 this year, for an example, we certainly can fund that and build that into the 2025 budget process because it already is split. And we already sort of, they're not going to be finishing the project until March of 2025, I think was the timeline that we're headed for. So I don't first off anticipate we'll be paying the consultant the whole amount until they're complete. And so that's into 2025. So I think that going into the budget cycle for 2025 will give us, that opportunity to say, okay, do we need an extra 5,000 or not, or what were the costs as they shook out? There is, through their methodology, there will be some decision making for the elected officials, which will impact that budget. So again, that 79,000 is the sort of everything included. There is some choices that you will be probably able to make along the way. That could reduce that a little bit. So I think we're fine, and I don't think the work would, that there's any work required for a financial amendment, unless, I don't believe there's any reason for it this year.
if I can. I'd be more comfortable if we knew we spent money outside of this contract, plus we have the balance of this contract to pay. I'd rather we make the amendment in this fiscal year. Otherwise, you are tacitly planning to have an overrun. You know you don't have enough money. However, I'm happy to wait and see what the consultant questions are on budget, and we can do it all then. But hopefully by the fall, we would actually, not just say, well, we ran out of money, we knew that would happen, that we would have made that small adjustment by the fall.
Yeah, through the chair, I mean, I can defer that to Joe and Stu for the RDCK. Because it's planned over the 2 years anyhow in our financial plan, and again, I can't even tell you if for sure we will go over. We did build that contingency in, and that's what it was for contingency of a little bit of unknown. But because we are going over the 2 years, and again, with a whole budget planning cycle taking place this fall, or, into the winter again for us, for the town, we'll be able to understand, what that commitment for 2025 will be. And also we know it's going to be minor. I'm anticipating it would be probably $5,000 or less.
Anything further? Right, we have received it for information. Move on to our action items list, ready. Should there are comments on our items on the list? Gary, I'll go first.
So I'm just going to scroll to it. For the list to be most useful, you would say more than ongoing, because I understand a lot of stuff is ongoing. So I had a few pointed questions, but something from May 2023, item 4 is ongoing. So if there's anything happening around that issue, hospital boards, BC Transit, transportation, anything going, it'd be nice if we had something other than ongoing. The next one says ongoing, the next one, ongoing completed. That's to do with Martel Beach. And I understand there is no resolution to the issue that was of most concern to Yakanuki, and that's trailer boat access. Is it completed for us or not? A bit hanging. Next one just says ongoing, complete, ongoing, completed. Many of these, ongoing, ongoing. A few words, 6 words would help me a little bit. Staff work with library to develop policy around capital reserve. Have we sent something to the library board for the review? Or has the library board sent something to us? Something, 6 words, where is it? So I'd rather not just say ongoing. And I have a few more specific ones, but I think I'm gonna leave them for offline.
Anybody else?
Yes, thank you. I value this opportunity here, so I'm not going to be doing the offline thing. So Director Jackman has pointed out to a couple of things, and I totally agree. The ongoing is not working for me very well. It just suggests no activity or no thought or no priority. Something would suggest that in fact it is in the radar being considered. So in terms of housekeeping, I would say there's 2 references to Martel Beach, that is 6 and 10. Yeah, they ought to be combined. And don't think that it is completed. I don't know what is outstanding or what the opportunity is, but certainly we can combine those 2. Further into housekeeping, I think 12, 14, and 15 can be removed. 12 is the Kootenai Lake Partnership and the Traditional Use Study. 14 is Chamber of Commerce partnering with Canada Day. That conversation apparently is completed, and I believe it is. And 15, the work with Creston Minor Hockey is completed. So those can come on. Guess I'm going to kind of go back to the beginning. And we were supposed to get a report in May agenda. I believe this is May on item number 2. That is terms of reference on the dog control. St. Gilles and Jordan to discuss with Mike Morrison, RDCK, and how the service would be addressed. I know that Jordan is actively working on that. He has approached us and we've given him our feedback as he's approached the board. So that really needs to be updated, that it's in progress, not report on May.
Gone to board.
On board, yeah.
Referred to board.
The other one was, number 4 speaks to RDCK, having Tom reach out to hospital boards and BC Transit regarding transportation between Creston and Cranbrook. What is the reality is that we are in the process of being contacted by a consulting company to capture our thoughts in and around transportation opportunities in RDCK, which I've already participated in. So I think it's of value. I had a good conversation, but that should be reflected in here. Because that's what's, and until that consultant report gets summarized and brought back to us, perhaps this thing should be just suspended until consultant report complete, would be inappropriate. And then the last one, if I could, Mr. Chair, is number 19 speaks to the staff reach out to Gold River Association regarding the budget. I and Roger, Director Attorney and I have a meeting with them coming up very shortly. I need to know where that's at so that I can be mentally prepared for that meeting. So that'd be a question to staff. Number 19 is the staff reached out to Gold River Association regarding the budget.
Is Joe still on there?
Sorry, through the chair, I am, but that's, sorry, that's not a budget that I do. I'm actually not sure who's responsible for that budget.
So grant and aid to go through Mike Morrison, probably.
So then it ought to be directed to Mike Morrison, and the date for that meeting is the 11th of June.
So through the chair, sorry, I just wasn't sure if Stuart was still on. So I'll ask that question right now. I'll just send, I won't be able to answer you right now, but I will forward the question.
I just need to know if somebody's reached out to that group or not, because then I know what will be part of what I can be prepared to talk about with them.
Understood.
Any other questions regarding the action sheet or action list?
Other than Mr. Chair, there's a whole lot of value in the action list, regardless of its status and so on. It allows us to have good conversations around things that are really relevant to our backyard.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like you, I would like, especially when we have something that's just been done recently, just instead of or a little more information on what's occurred recently, email sent out or whatever it takes to give us a little more specific information, more productive for us. Hey, that brings us to public time. Loretta, you're still here.
Still here. I don't have any questions at this time.
Okay.
Excuse me. We have a
And we will move to a closed meeting, so we'll go.
move to exclude the public from the meeting.
Yes. But somebody want to open that?
So moved.
Okay, second. Gary, also, Brad,